Welcome to the October 1st GNP meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:02. We have no delegations today, and our administrative item is Drayton Valley Strategic Financial Framework. Oh, sorry.
Two Monicas.
We do.
The cloning machine worked.
And we do have an addition to agenda, sorry.
Yes, if we could, 4.3 under council items, I'd just like to give an update from the Mayor's Homeless Forum, please.
Okay, so 4.3.
Yes.
Addition. All right. Anything else? No?
Nothing from administration, thank you.
Okay, so we will go ahead with the strategic financial framework, and Elvira will be presenting that.
Good morning, Mayor and Council, and Deputy Mayor. So we've been working on this for a few months. We started talking about it during last year's budget meeting. And so it's been quite the project, but I have a first draft ready for the financial framework, so I'm here to present it at GMP, and then we're hoping to bring it back for approval at the council meeting, which will be the last council meeting before the election. Administration completed a framework that is designed to create a common understanding of the town's existing strategies by demonstrating how fiscal sustainability principles are applied and how these strategies support informed decision-making. The strategic financial framework, will be called the framework, considers future financial challenges through agreed-upon principles, strategies, and processes within consideration of the long term. The implementation of the framework will guide the organization in making decisions necessary to plan for financial sustainability while maintaining a level of adaptability to help achieve the strategic plan's vision. This document serves as a foundational guide that connects the town's existing financial policy, reports, plans, and day-to-day financial practices. It outlines the key principles that civic administration follows in financial planning and decision-making. It is intended to complement, not replace, the town of Drayton Valley's existing financial policies, plans, and documents. Additionally, it is meant to be a document that houses all the documents mentioned in one central place for ease of understanding and how they relate to both the town's overall financial framework and the other policies and bylaws. So I'm hoping that council's had a chance to read the document. I know it was a hefty one. I will not go over it in detail, of course, because we'd be here for a very long time, but I thought I would quickly go over the guiding principles, because I think that's the important part, is all the strategies relate back to the principles as set out. So first of all, we have sustainability. Oh, let me do this. So the core financial principles guiding the framework are sustainability, flexibility, and minimizing vulnerability. These principles are recognized as key indicators of a government's financial health as outlined in the public sector statements of recommended practices. So sustainability ensures the town can deliver and maintain program and services at acceptable levels of taxation, both now and in the future. Flexibility, maintain the financial agility to respond to changing needs and circumstances, such as economic downturns or unexpected events. Minimizing vulnerability, reduce exposure to risks by limiting dependence on external funding sources and strategically allocating funding in a way that supports long-term sustainability. And then we have also some supplemental principles. So we want to align financial decision with the town's strategic plan and corporate priorities. We want to deliver services efficiently, making the best use of available resources. We want to provide services at fair and equitable levels. So we want fees and charges, they should reflect the value and the levels of service provided. Whenever possible, those who benefit from a service should pay for them, supporting the concept of intergenerational equity. And then lastly, be accountable to maintain transparency with stakeholders by clearly communicating key financial challenges, assumptions, and consideration involved in decision-making. So throughout the document, we go through various areas in the finance world. So first off, we have budget and expenditure management. And so we go through some of the policies that we have right now as they relate to budget and expenditure. So we have the asset management policy, purchasing and tendering policy, and the public consultation and communication policy. And so I go through this document, we go through the key strategies and principles when it comes to budget and expenditures. So I'll just give a few examples because I just think that going through it in detail might be too much. But the first one is that a multi-year budget process will align with the town's strategic planning process, as the multi-year budget provides a mechanism to allocate resources necessary to implement the strategic plan. So as you know, when we're doing budget, we always project into 3 years into the future. So we have an idea as where we're going. It gives an opportunity to do something, perhaps change taxes this year or not change taxes this year, depending on what we need next year. So we're not making decisions in a silo and just ignoring what will happen next year if we know something's going to happen next year. So that's the idea behind this strategy. And so we have some, in every section, I also have outlined some areas where we need to start using a strategy or establish something or create a new policy. And so one of the things under the future strategies in this area is that we'll make best efforts to ensure Drayton Valley residents are informed and engaged on budget and tax levy setting decisions with a variety of channels and opportunities for engagement. And we've talked about this a little bit. We do some public engagement, but I think that that's an area we'd like to improve on, just to engage the public before budget comes up so that everyone has the opportunity to get involved or at least have some information. So that's one of the future strategies that we want to get into. And so that goes on throughout the budget and expenditure area. We talk about inflation, how we deal with inflation, how we deal with new or discontinued programs and services, asset management, and service levels. So those are very key areas under budget and expenditure management, where we broke down strategies for each. And then at the end, we have, I have an area under each section that says what new policies we want to create. And the one we want to create here is multi-year budget policy. So we do follow a multi-year budget practice, but we want to create a policy that outlines it more clearly, and so that everyone is on the same page and council can clearly see how we approach budgeting. And then those same principles, after each section, we ask some questions to see if it aligns with the principles that we had mentioned above. And yeah, that goes through each section. We have revenue next. And so one of the key principles under revenue is that non-recurring revenues should only be used to fund non-recurring expenditures. Only recurring revenues should be used to fund permanent programs and ongoing costs. So in developing financial plans and budgets, the town takes great care to match its expenditures with revenues of a similar nature. Generally, ongoing expenditures should be funded by ongoing revenues. So the idea being that if a limited funding source funds an ongoing program, then at some point, it's going to have a tax impact to keep that program going, or we're going to have to discontinue that program. So we want to make sure that if it is a grant, that is a grant, oftentimes non-recurring revenue, if it comes one time, that it funds something that only costs one time. Along with that, I have it more outlined in some of the other strategies, is that when there is a grant available, we want to ensure that that project that we're taking on aligns with council's strategic plan, so that we're using grant funding to further a strategic plan rather than just doing a one-off project. And then also considering how the ongoing costs are going to be funded for something new that's being introduced. If a capital project is being funded by a grant, then a really important question to ask is, what is it going to cost to maintain that in the future, and how is it going to be funded? Because if it is going to be tax funded, then that's a discussion that council needs to have in terms of, is this something that the taxpayer should be paying for? So it goes through a lot of that. Some of the other things that it goes through is specifics with property taxes. One of the things under property taxes is that the town will regularly compare to similar communities to ensure competitiveness and fairness. The town of Drayton Valley serves as a regional hub with significant industrial activity in the surrounding areas. The town services and amenities play an important role in attracting site selection and business relocation. A competitive economic development strategy considers real estate, housing, services, amenities, and taxation. Consequently, a strong and stable tax framework, supports the attraction and retention of investment and the associated skilled workforce. And the towns currently being compared to are Town of Edson, Town of Whitecourt, Town of Westlock, Town of Rocky Mountain House, Town of Ponoka, Town of Innisfail, and Town of Hinton. And a comparative analysis will be done ideally at the beginning of each council term. So once every council term, ideally at the beginning. That way, if the council feels they want different comparatives, then we can compare to different set of towns for that. And some of we talk under utility fees, still under revenues. I'm really lagging here. We talk about being self-sustainable, but also making sure that sufficient reserves are being contributed from utilities to make sure that it's sustainable. We talk about user fees. So generally the principles outlined with user fees. So municipality is unique in that there's areas like the pool and the Omniplex where we do charge user fees, but not to recover the all the expenses, because that would be too much. So we have like a partly subsidized, partly user fee model. And so I talk a lot about the people that are using it are paying for it, but in some circumstances, like especially for recreation, it is a mixed bag. So we have the users do pay that use it, but then the rest gets funded by taxation. It is not one that can be, I don't know, maybe there's places in the world, but it would not be easy to charge enough to actually break even in those areas. And so as a town, as a municipality, we value recreation, and so we do subsidize it in part. But we do talk about how to set user fees, how to make sure that we have the whole picture before setting user fees or increasing user fees. And then grants and government funding. So this goes a little bit more detail on how we're gonna establish priorities and match them with funding. And then the other thing under revenues too is to make sure that other non-recurring, or not non-recurring, but perhaps inconsistent funding is used in a way that's not going to affect taxes in any given year, and that would be investment income. So investment income can really fluctuate over time. And so if we rely on, let's say we budget $500,000 for investment income, and we're able to alleviate some pressure on tax revenues, and the next year we only have $100,000, now we have to raise $400,000 in taxes to make up that difference, right? And so generally speaking, we want to be very, very conservative with what we budget in our general budget for investment income for that reason, because it can be really fluctuate year over year depending on what interest rates are doing. And we don't want to have to do a big tax hike all of a sudden because of something that we could have just avoided by putting it maybe into a capital reserve or maybe a tax stabilization reserve. Which brings me to another point. I kind of jumped over it, but one of the big things under tax revenues that we want to implement is a tax levy stabilization reserve. And so what that is that we want to start a reserve where we can contribute a little bit every year to that reserve, build it up, and then if one year we know like inflation is just out of control, we can pull from that reserve to stabilize the tax increase in a year. So we don't have to do a big tax increase or any given year. So it gives more stability. And a lot of municipalities do that. So that's a really key strategy that we want to implement here. So we'll talk a bit more about it during budget time. But I think that's an important highlight in this document. And if you haven't read the whole document, I'd encourage you to at least read that section. It'll be a really good strategy to implement. And so local improvement levies, nothing much to note there. We haven't used local improvement levies a whole ton over the last few years. Really, the thing I wanted to highlight is that we do need to bring it up as an option in situations where a resident or a group of residents come forward and they really, really want something to be built, a road, a sidewalk, a driveway, not driveway, what do you call it? Approach or something like that, and it's not really in our budget, or it doesn't benefit enough people to make sense for the town to fund, then to bring this up as an option to maybe have a cost share. So we have done that multiple times in the past. We just finished paying off our last one, but we've done it multiple times in the past, and so I can think of a handful of situations in the last 4 years where somebody's put pressure on council to do something in town where it just didn't make sense, and we just sort of said, like, no, it's not something we can do, but perhaps we need to bring this forward as an option at the time, just to see what the interest is. So really what that would look like is that depending on, we discuss it and see what the whole cost is and what council feels like the portion that we should pay, and then we do a local improvement levy and add it to their taxes, and they pay it off over time. So it's not, so we pay for it, we borrow for it, pay for it, and then we put it on their taxes until it's paid off. And a lot of times we've done it like where half of it, they pay off half of it and half of it we take, or whatever portion that we decide at that time. But it can be a good approach to make sure that these improvements still take place, that we don't just write it off because it doesn't affect, or it doesn't improve the life of every resident in town. And then one of the policies we want to write in this section is the self-sustaining utilities policy, where we make it more clear that how utilities is to be run as its own, almost as its own entity, and it funds its own operations. And so we've talked about it a lot over the last few years, and that it'll take time to get there, but we can only get there if we put a path to getting there. And so that's what that speaks to. We have a section on growth management. I know we haven't had a ton of growth over the last few years, but it's still important to consider it and to be ready for when it happens. One of the things that we do have an offsite levy bylaw, and so that's a strategy to make sure that when new development happens, that we have the appropriate offsite levies, to make sure that the expanded infrastructure costs related only to that development does not get handed over to the residents of Drayton Valley. However, one of the strategies is to update that levy bylaw because it is definitely dated and we haven't needed to use it much. So it's been something that's just been put on the back burner, but that's one of the things that needs to happen. It's to establish fair rates and promote equity. And then the other strategy to implement is that assessment growth revenues resulting from growth of the town should first be applied to growth-related costs. And the way we're going to write a policy that will outline how to do that, and it's going to be called the growth management policy. And so that's on the list of policies to write in this upcoming next few months. Cash investments and reserve management. This deals a lot with how we're going to manage reserves and investments. And the first big thing on the list is operating surplus and deficit. So we talk about what to do with unbudgeted operating surpluses. Right now, they're being allocated to reserves, you could say, but really what's just happening is just going into an unrestricted fund. And so it just sits there. And then in any given year, if council wants to fund anything, we just take money out of it. And so one of the things that I want to implement is for the surpluses. So I'm talking about surpluses beyond what we budgeted for. So we always budget for a surplus so that we can contribute to reserves. Every year we have to. Well, we don't have to, but it's prudent. It's responsible too. But like last year, where we had some savings, maybe some projects that were under budget or whatever it might be. I'm talking about the surplus of the surplus over what we budgeted for. So that should, I want to have a policy that says exactly what council wants to do with those surpluses. So they automatically go maybe into the tax stabilization reserve. That would be a really good one because it kind of worked like our snow reserve. If we're under budget on snow, it goes there, and then a year when we need it, we can pull from it. So that's kind of how that would work. I think it's just better to make our surpluses target them, and it's just a better financial strategy than to leave them in an unrestricted surplus to just get pulled from periodically through budgeting. Then the other one is global budgeting. I don't know if you've heard that term before, but really what it means is that department staff are responsible for managing their budgets on a global basis, meaning that higher than expected spending in one area will be offset by, savings in another area. So how that would work is, let's say, corporate services. If I'm going to be over budget in P&G, then the first thing I would do is look for savings or make sure there's savings in another area. It just is a way that budgets are managed holistically, and departments can respond to operational needs without jeopardizing the overall fiscal stability. And it supports efficient use of resources while managing service levels. Investments, so we don't have currently, we do have an investment policy, but it does need to be updated, as well as our reserve policy needs to be updated. So those are some of the strategies to moving forward to getting our policies all up to date. I've outlined our reserves, how they work, what type of reserves we have. And then on page 44 is the future strategies of reserves. So one of the big things is creating a tax stabilization reserve. And debt management. So one of the key strategies that we currently implement when it comes to debt is that we all know that the MGA sets out limits on how much we can borrow, and it's based on any given year's tax revenues coming in. But we have an internal debt limit set to establish. So internal debt limits have been established to support financial stability by preventing overallocation of future operating funds to debt repayment. So we don't want to get to the full amount that we can borrow, because that would really tie our hands going forward. So we want to stay well below that limit. That's really what this speaks to. And we've had this in place for, I can't say how long, but I'd say probably for most of the time that the municipality has existed. Which is still a key strategy so we can maintain our flexibility over time, and also to make sure that that we can employ the user, or the people that use the service pay for the service, intergenerational equity, I guess, piece of municipal government. And one of the key things is that we only want to take out debt when it's aligned with organizational priorities. So I know it sounds like common sense, but I think it's important to note that that when we take out debt, it's something that aligns with what council's priorities are. And of course, that the debt will be issued through the most beneficial channels and structured in a way that best serves the town interest. So an example is that we typically in the past, most often we borrow through Alberta Capital Finance, because it's a pretty guaranteed way of getting low interest debt. And they have in the past given municipalities better rates, but that the last couple of years there hasn't been really good rates. And so we went out and took a different type of loan just to make sure that we're not overpaying on interest. So that's what that means, is not just to go with them just because. Make sure you look around to see what's in the best interest of the town. And then the other thing too, is that debt should be reserved for growth or new things, and should typically not be borrowed for replacement of used assets. So for example, for 50th Avenue, we had to borrow some, just because of the situation we were in. Typically, we would not want to borrow for something, because now we want to make sure to borrow on, like, let's say the new pool, because for 30 years, the people that are using it are the ones paying for it. Whereas the road, it's like it's already been used, so it's offsetting. So by the time this debenture is paid, it's already going to have to be a new debenture right away. And so it's misaligning the people that are paying for it and the people that are using it. Whereas if you borrow on something new, a new service, then whoever's using it is the one paying for it into the future. So for a road that we know is going to be replaced, that should now, we should be, through asset management, we should be putting money aside to make sure when it comes up to be replaced, that there's money to replace it. And a few of the policies that will be created are the debt management policy and the financial impact assessment policy. And the financial impact assessment policy speaks to how we'll decide if we can take on a new project. So we didn't have a policy in place for the new pool, but extensive work was done to see, can we as a municipality afford a new pool? How are we going to pay for it? What's the debt going to look like? How is it going to impact reserves? What are the operating needs going to be like? So that when we do borrow, that we make sure that that we've looked at the whole financial picture before we borrow on a new project. And that's really a very high level picture of the whole policy or the whole framework. And I'd be happy to take some questions now if you have them, but I really hope that you take the time to read it if you haven't already.
Perfect, thank you. Is there any questions from council? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I did read it, and I do have some notes jotted down. So just when we look under future strategies where appropriate fluctuations in tax labor requirements, smoothing that out. One thing I don't see in here, so we talked about, using strategic draws from reserves or careful management of debt levels, but one thing I don't see is just change in service levels or offerings, right? That is also another option. I think that's a real option. One other thing I don't see is any sort of strategy around residential versus commercial taxation and sort of, relying less on commercial and, kind of finding that balance there, right? Another thought was just around revenues and kind of the shock-proofing years of high inflation. If we're in those years of high inflation and we're looking at standing to get more revenues from investments, should we be using that to offset? We don't know, of course, at the start of the year where we're going to end up at the end of the year. Yeah. But we can, like you said, conservatively say this is what we think we're going to get, and then incorporate it that way. And then one last thought was just around the global budget management. I get the idea around it all. I guess my only question is so when council approves a budget, right? Yeah. We have all these buckets, and we say this is what we approve in each of those buckets. So when one bucket is using more than it should, and one isn't using as much as it's been allotted, is it fair to go to council and say, look, we have an imbalance here, and we need to shift some of this stuff around? Because I guess my thought is we're ultimately responsible for the finance of the town. And if we're shifting money around because, not saying somebody's spending stupidly, but potentially there are things that come up that we have to pay for, right? So to help us understand, I guess, where that money's going and why it's being shifted around, that might be a good process to have.
So the idea of global budgeting is actually only if you have a variance within a bucket. So it wouldn't be like if the pool is over budget, it wouldn't be like, oh, now we're using savings from roads. It would be if repairs under roads is over, then P&G, we'd manage it within the roads budget. So that's a good point. Maybe I should be more specific in that section but that's the intent, is that within, maybe department's not the right word. Maybe I could be more specific, but within that. So it should not affect the different buckets of money or service levels. It's how to deliver. It could affect service levels, I guess, but it would stay within that one area. And if we needed more, if roads couldn't maintain it, then we'd have to come to council and have to either ask for more money or, pretty much ask for more money or say like, hey, we can't deliver the same service level with the money so then council would have to make that choice. But yes, the intent is for it to be managed within the bucket.
And it's just, if we have, every year we get assessments, and if we have outliers on either end, right, so too high or too low, do we have a process around managing that as well in here? Managing assessments? Yeah, so like I said, let's say we have something that goes they double or triple their taxes in a year, do we have a way of,
You're speaking about individual properties, not as a group?
Yeah, yeah.
No, but I don't have anything in this, but we're implementing procedures within the department to manage that, yes. I'm just trying to think if it would be appropriate to put in here. Perhaps it would be. I can definitely look into that, but we are working in our department with our assessor to come up with a way to manage that. And at the end of the day, depending on what that looks like, then council will be involved in that as well, because if it involves, because it could impact the budget, right? So if the assessor comes and says, these are the assessments for the year, and there's two people, let's say two properties that have increased by like 100% or 75% or whatever, and then we say, no, we don't want that because it seems unreasonable, then for the year that the assessment is done, it impacts our revenues. Next year, the pie gets reallocated, so it wouldn't affect our revenues. But once budget is set, that year it could affect our budget.
Yeah.
And so depending on what that looks like, then something would have to come to council for approval. If it's something where council wishes to approve a policy that we can just follow, then it would be a one-time thing. Or alternatively, if it's like, if council wants to see them as they happen, there, of course, there are times when this happens, but the hope is that it doesn't happen very much.
yeah, for sure. I guess my only thought is just, there's absolutely budget implications, because if we're setting budget in, April, May? And somebody goes and contests their taxes, absolutely that can impact our budget rate. So I'm just thinking, how do we mitigate that ahead of time? If you can kind of deal with it beforehand as opposed to after the fact, right?
So we do want to deal with it before taxes get sent out. What I'm not certain of is if the assessments come, I'm just trying to think through it as I'm talking here, but what ends up happening is we have like two competing priorities, or two competing principles, I guess. So one is equitability. So let's say that an assessment increases by 100%, then there's a couple of questions. Is like, was it underassessed for this many years? Is 100%, is that correct? Or was there a mistake? So let's say 100% was correct. Let's say 100%, that building should have increased by 100%. So that's the equitable decision would be, okay, well, that's your share. Then we have customer service and reasonability and all those competing things. And we're saying like, listen, I get that. The pie has to be shared fairly among everyone. Let's say we need to leverage $14 million of taxes. We're going to leverage those 14 million. It's just about who pays how much. So the second question then is that, are we okay with maybe shifting the equitability a bit in favor of being reasonable and putting a strategy in place to get people's properties up to where they should be, which in my perspective, we need to be, because they're not happening all over the place. It's here and there. And so I think we need to get a strategy in place for how we deal with exceptions. And so that's what we're starting on right now. I'm not really far enough into the process, which is why I didn't address it in here, but potentially if I could, maybe I'll add it in here before we get it approved next year, because or next week or 2 weeks from now, which it is a really good one, and we are working on it. So it's not that's not the reason it's not in there, just we started kind of working on it after I started this, but it's a very good, I know council's probably lost because we're speaking of like a very real example. And so it's definitely something to look forward to. So I had an extensive conversation with our assessor to say like I get where you're coming from, where like they have that framework from the government and how to do all of it. I said, but there's no place under the sun where somebody's taxes double and council's going to be like, or administration for that matter is going to be like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like, even if it's equitable, we have to have a strategy in place to get that property, if it was incorrectly assessed in the past, or if things change or whatever it might be. The only really circumstance under which that would be appropriate is if the building was partially built and then it was finished the next year and it actually increased, right? And so we are dealing with that yeah. So we're getting a strategy in place for that, getting a procedure in place for that, so that it does not, surprises like that don't happen in the future.
All right, Councilor Gamano?
Couple of things. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, or maybe this is a different thought process, but when you talk about global budget allocation, right? When we think that, we will take from where there are savings and we will allocate it to where it's needed. That's one of the thought processes. The other one we could explore is actually rewarding efficiencies, right? So while we do this, would the efficiencies get rewarded or not? Sometimes in municipal government or any government, the problem is that we allocate the budget for a year and then we have to spend that money, or it's hard to move it to the next year, right? So, but if we can have a mechanism where we reward efficiencies and move that funds to the next year, if somebody or some department do a great job of finding efficiencies and finding where savings are and all of that, right? So, while we think about allocating within the same year, maybe we need to move that thought process to a higher level and see how we can reward the departments that actually doing a difference.
So that thought process is very good for a for-profit. It's typically not great for a municipality, and I'll tell you why. Council gives a budget to provide a level of service, right? And so if we start doing that, then what can end up happening is that levels of service are impacted to get efficiencies so that they can squirrel away money for a future year. So, because I have talked about that before, because what we're saying when we come to you with a budget is to say that these are the service levels we'll meet. And you would not want, so let's just use snow removal. You wouldn't want Shelley to start cutting corners or to try to save money for the next year. You want her to deliver the service level set by council. So it can be kind of a dangerous road to go down, even with aligning tax dollars for that year. You're setting tax levels, and so if you start carrying, then things can get messed up. But I can see if there's a way I can speak about efficiency though. But again, the global budgets are not meant to take money from one place and offset by the other. It's just internally in one department, just to make sure that they are finding savings if possible to manage their own over budgets. But I will make a note of that and see if I can find a way to specify that a bit more, make more clarity on that. But in terms of in the office where Mike has a surplus at the end of the year and he has to spend it, or else mom and daddy aren't going to give him the money next year.
Exactly, right? That's the thought process that we have
We don't
right
want
now.
that either, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so
right?
it is
yeah.
unique. Municipalities are a bit unique in that, because you don't want people just to spend their budget because then they won't get the budget next year. But also you don't want them to over prioritize saving money that they're not delivering the services that council set out to be delivered. I'm trying hard to find like a really good example of that, but I've read into it and researched it in the past when thinking about carrying funds over, and that's where the game gets a little bit difficult. But I'll do a little more research into that and see if I can explain it in a way that makes more sense, or alternatively, if it makes sense to add more details under the global budgeting section, just to clarify more like what we're talking about.
Right, finding that right balance, right? Between
Yeah,
between
exactly.
the two.
Yeah,
So,
for
but
sure.
Thank you for that.
You're
If I
welcome.
may, another, okay. Growth, I guess, with the revenue created from growth, You mentioned that we should only put towards growth matters, right? So I'm not sure, how we define growth-related matters. My concern is that, if we have more growth, for example, in my mind, growth-related matters would be water, sewer, infrastructure, all of that. But it could be recreation. It could be other things that, when we face with growth, that we need to improve and give new services, maybe take out, existing services. Who knows, right? What we need to shuffle when it comes to that, right? So are we thinking about that, and how do we balance that as well?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the growth, pays for growth happens through development and development charges and development levies and offsite levies and such. But a strategy that's really good and a lot of municipalities do undertake is that when you have assessment growth, then you take that assessment growth and you strategically fund that growth-related thing. So I guess maybe what I could be more specific on is growth in assessment increases just by value going up, or growth in do we have more? So when you're adding a house and adding a business and adding this, then it starts getting more expensive. And so you want to make sure that the money is there to fund those kinds of things instead of just taking it in and using it for day-to-day things, to make sure that it's just a strategic way to make sure that the town is sustainable. But I will make a note on that section too. The growth pays for growth. It is in the future strategy section, but yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Rick? Oh. Okay.
Just a couple of little things. As far as budgeting, many years ago, it was you get to the end of the year, you add a few percentage points to your budget, and that's what you throw in front of council. I think it's become more itemized and looked at more detailed now. And I think it's two things are important. It's important to instill that mindset in the managers that they shouldn't just be increasing their budget every year. There are reasons why your budget will fluctuate, and I think it's incumbent upon those managers to present that logic for the ups and downs in their budget, and also I think it's a mindset with council that they need to accept, if they want precise budgeting, or as precise as you can get, that they need to not try and dig too deeply backwards and understand why that budget is going up and down. Just accept the logic of the manager, that this is why my budget's a little lower, a little higher, et cetera. And I think that's important, because it's easy to just add on those few percentage points and say, okay, that's where my budget's going to be, but that's not based on the actual requirements for that area. I guess I shouldn't get too more deeply into that, but I'll just say whenever I presented my budget, it was all over the place. Not crazy amounts of up and downs, but it changed year to year. And one other thing that was implemented in my last few years in the county was that if someone wanted to spend some money in the last month or two of the budget year, that would have to be approved higher up the line, because again, a common action is to look at, you've got 1 month left in the year, hey, this is all the money I got left in my budget, let's look around and see how we can spend this money. There needs to be a mindset there that if you bring money back to us, that is a good thing. That's not a reflection that you're not managing your department well. It's a reflection that you're being careful with your funding. And I'm sure we've all heard about it or seen it. I got to spend this budget. Only got so much money, and then, trinkets start falling into people's offices and stuff. So something to consider. And I understand why it happens. Again, when you're on the administrative side, you're trying to ensure that the next year's budget is not going to be slashed because council sees, oh, you were under budget this year. I think it's an education, so to speak, on either side of the table here, that council can't punish somebody because they were fiscally responsible and didn't spend all their budget. They found savings in there. And I think the administrative side needs to also understand that's a good thing, and council needs to understand that that's a good thing, and give credit for that. And it just saves that sort of old mindset that add 3%, add 5% every year, and that's going to be my budget. Base your budget on what you got in front of you and what you need to spend money on. I guess that's more of a comment than a question. I apologize, but just, yeah.
Yep. No, I have some thoughts around that. So when we get to the end of the year, it is up to the general managers to help their managers manage those kinds of things. But there are different kinds of savings. So some savings do result from efficiencies, and that's great. We want that. What we don't want is if council approved for this to be done and they didn't do that, now they're saving money. That's what we don't want. So how to manage that, that's the key. So when you get towards the end of the year and they still have room, is it because you wanted to do this specific training and you weren't able to schedule it in that year? Well, that should then be carried to the next year because you simply didn't get to it. But if you're fine, though that's the fine line that you have to toe, but I totally agree. And in terms of just doing a percent, we've never really done that here. I've always walked with managers through their budgets and looked at what they've spent over the last few years and kind of use that, like what has it actually cost in the past? And you can see a trend at going a little bit higher, then maybe it needs to be a little higher, maybe it's the same as last year. But I think specifically for the town, I think some of the fluctuations have been really difficult because we've been putting them off for so many years that's where you see some big unexpected things come up. And so in an ideal world, I almost fell there. In an ideal world, you should be able to kind of see just a steady, things cost more, taxes go up a little bit more, and it's but we don't live in a perfect world. And based on some of the history, that's just not the world we get to live in right now today. But this, along with educating both council and administration, we're hoping to get maybe back to that so we can have a bit more stability going forward. But unfortunately, we do have to catch up on some, especially infrastructure things that we've put off for various reasons over the years. But I think asset management will help a lot in it, is already starting to help a lot with that. So we can kind of predict, okay, 3 years from now, this, 4 years from now, this. And so that we don't get to that year and they're like, well, we have $1 million this we didn't expect, right? And so a little bit more predictability will be really, really great to have, and that's what we're working towards. But I agree with all the comments that you made. It is kind of managing those opposing things, right? Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Dodds?
So fantastic document. This is absolutely great. You did a great job on it, so thank you for that. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what the multi-year financial budget policy would look like?
Yeah, so we would, at the beginning of council's term, we would essentially budget for the next 4 years. And so then we would come back in year 2 or year 3 saying that this happened, so we need to adjust it a bit. So we'd come back with, budget time would look like, these are the unexpected things that we weren't able to predict. And then council would approve that. So essentially, we'd have a 4-year, it more likely will be 3-year, because year 1 of council's term usually doesn't work that way. So it'll most likely be a 3-year, and council will do a multi-year budget and say like, so that way we can make decisions based on council's priorities, which years they're gonna happen, so that you can plan for things multiple years in a row, rather than just making decisions on the fly. So if 1 year you don't have anything to spend on and you don't really need to do a tax increase or like even a 1%, but you know that next year you're gonna have to do a 7, why not do a 3 this year and a 3.5 next year, or 3.5 and a 3.5? It'd be a lot more sustainable than to do none this year and a big increase next year. So it just allows a further away approach on budgeting that creates more stability, and also I think will help roll out council's strategic priorities in a way that, we can plan for them, so that if we do strategic planning in, let's say, February, I think, or whenever it is, and we already know, like, these are council's priorities, but we say, this and this one we're gonna do in 26, this one we're gonna do in 27, but we don't actually put it in the budget, then what happens in 28? Like, I know this is a priority of council's, but we didn't plan for it coming up, so now you either have to do a huge tax increase or you're not doing it. So it just allows to plan for those ahead of time. So it won't be perfect, but we can have a strategy in place. And then, so if you do 27, 28, 29, when would the next election be? 26, 25, 29?
Sure.
Anyway, so then in, let's say 28, we come back and we say, oh, this budget for X, Y, Z, it'll look a little bit differently. And so then we can discuss the variances or the exceptions at budget, rather than discussing everything, because council's already set their expectations for the next 4 years.
So I see the benefit in that, because then, of course, you know where we're going, how we can budget for that, exactly
Yeah.
what you're talking about, the taxation rates and things like that. I guess my question would be, so like this year, new council comes in, the budget's already been,
Yeah.
will be deliberated, so then you'll have your strategic planning that'll happen next year. It'll be based on that. Do you feel, I feel that what would happen is that you may have a council that dreams big, like, we're gonna build a new fire hall in year 2, and in year 3, we're gonna build a civic center, and do you know what I mean? So then you've budgeted for that, so then I just feel there will be, when you talk about the foundational principles, I think these are fantastic, especially flexibility. So I think of, how do you incorporate unexpected events? How do you incorporate the pivots or the changes? And do you still do an annual strategic update? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and the 4-year budget, I should make clear, would not be capital.
So
But
operations.
it would be operating budget, so, but not to say that we wouldn't plan out capital.
Yeah. Because we do for the 10 years anyways.
Yes, we do, and we do a 10-year projecting, but
Yeah.
if, let's say in 4 years, it was very, very, like, council was very keen on 2 big capital projects, then I could take the time in year 1 of this council, this next term, to say, like, if we do a little bit of debt, little reserves, X, Y, Z, then we could work it out, or it's going to work, or it's not going to work, or it would require something else to be dropped. Like, we could look at it still holistically, but it would not be it's not to say that we're going to be able to afford everything council wants, of course not.
Yeah.
Because we all want, we'd love to have everything in Drayton Valley, right? But, and the money is, of course, always limited, but it would allow council to agree on trade-offs potentially, to be like, okay, well, if we can do one big project in our term,
Yeah.
like a new building, which one would it be? And it would allow that the year from when strategic planning happens in February to that next budget, when we are gonna do the multi-year budget, it would allow that time for research, for going out for quotes, doing all that work and giving all those options to council before we get to the budget, so that it's more of a process than just all of a sudden you're at budget and now you're feeling like, oh my God, like that's too much or whatever. So we started talking about it way ahead of time. That's the hope, right?
Is to plan for it, and then would you incorporate grants in there as well? So let's say, for an example, Field House or something, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's the number one priority coming in with the next council, and then you're like, okay, in year 3, we'd like to see that. So then you'll plan out, like you said, you'll lay out what it'll cost and the operations and everything, and then will you also incorporate or an estimate of grants?
So, that's an interesting thing, because in here, one of the future strategies was to not rely
On grants?
on grants for long-term planning, because they're not guaranteed. However, that being said, typically we do know a couple years in advance for LGFF and gas tax, or it's called Canada Community Building Fund. Those two are fairly steady. And so what we could do, and what we did with the pool, is saying that we're gonna save, of our annual grant funding, we're gonna save $100,000 a year for the pool. That's what we did with the pool, or we could do more. And so we can do that. We can build a plan saying that for the first 3 years, we're going to save so much of the grant funding.
Percentage of the grants, yeah.
And then we can do debt and some reserves, and we'll increase the debt if we have to, or we'll reduce the debt if let's say we get more grants, because sometimes we can stack the grants. And so then the important thing is that if it's a priority of council, to have it ready if we do get the grant. So there's two things, is council can say, we want to do it regardless of additional grant funding. We're okay with taking out debt for it, and then we can move ahead with it and get grants. If we get more grants, great. Or you can say, we'll have it shovel ready and we'll wait till we get the grant. So those are two strategies, but we can plan it out in advance better if we know it's a priority, and we're acting on it now, even though it's not going to happen now. And that's the key thing, I think, that potentially maybe it's been missing over the last term, is like, we can't talk about it, and it's like, yeah.
And then, so there would be that flexibility built in the policy?
Yeah,
to-
absolutely,
yeah, to
right?
shift with
And
that.
some of the flexibility comes with preserving our debt limit. It comes with making sure our reserve balances are at a sufficient level. Those are all tools we use to make sure that we're still flexible.
Okay, and then I just had a couple other questions. So when we talk about, where did it go now? Oh, so for utility fees, we always talk about putting a percentage away. Do you have a percentage in mind? I know we were able to put a little bit this last budget, so is there going to be coming a recommendation of what that looks like?
Yeah,
And will it go up over time?
Yeah, so Jocelyn and I will sit down to come up with a strategy for the long term, and that's, I know that council probably feels like we've been talking about this forever, and why are we still talking about it? But the thing is, it's something that needs full commitment from a CAO and from council. And it's something that we need a little bit of consistency for multiple years to start it off. And so if Ms. Whaley and I can sit down and agree on it and then bring it back and actually commit to it, then we'll be on our way. The amount is a lot. So right now, the recommended reserve transfers, I want to say, are just about 1.3 million a year should be going to utility reserves. And we put a couple hundred last year from the surplus. So that tells you kind of where we need to go. Although Shelley and Connor and Ken, Asset Management, and myself are working on a more responsive way of dealing with utility rates and reserve transfers. So in the past, what we've done is we've paid for a study. So Corvus does a utility rate study, and it's done, every 4 years or so. And at that time, if the master plans are not up to date and the utility rate study is using those master plans, sometimes we're already out to date by the time we roll out the rates. And so what we're doing now is we're getting an online platform where it's pretty much a living document. So if a master plan comes out that says like, we'll definitely have to upgrade this wastewater, we'll have to do this underground replacement, this and this, then as we come into that information, we input it and it changes what our reserve transfer should be, how we can save up for projects. So we're not always out of date. And so we're just starting the implementation of it. So it should be ready to rock and roll by next budget. And so that may or may not change the reserve transfers a little bit, because I say that because the utility rate study that was done last, Shelley's not here, is she? There are some projects on there that we just will not be doing. For whatever reason, I can't really speak to the reason. I just know that upon conversation with Shelley, we were like, wow, I don't think we're doing that $10 million project. So anyways, that's to say that it might change. I'm not saying that it will project a lower reserve transfers. However, I am saying that they'll be more accurate, whatever they are. And so we're very excited to be going down that road. So the idea being that utility replacements should never be on hold, waiting for grant funding. But I also know that part of the reason we are in this situation is because of inconsistent provincial policies and the way it's been done. So it's not just our fault, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, and the province blames us for not putting away those reserves, right?
Well,
Wondering
but
why we're not doing
they
it,
put nothing in place to force it either. I mean, we want to be responsible children, I know we do, but I don't know, that's a whole conversation for another day, but we are working on a more proactive way of strategizing this. So we can also, I know council's talked a little bit about, well, can we maybe charge this area more if perhaps it's more expensive to deliver services there or whatever. And we haven't had a lot of flexibility in that in the way the studies have been done in the past, but this one will allow for more cost analysis based on areas. And so it gives council a bit more flexibility to say, perhaps if you're further away, I don't know. It's just an example. I'm not sure if we'll take it or if we'll need it, but it's good to have. Let's say if you're further away from town, then logically it would cost more to deliver services there, potentially, depending on its proximity to the water plant and stuff like that. So maybe they should be a little bit more expensive rather than just simply your meter size and your fixed rates and stuff like that. So that will give a little bit more flexibility to say like, hey, delivering services to you costs more, therefore you should pay more, which also goes with the user pay approach as well. So yeah, there's lots in process. So I'm just hoping that as a senior leadership team that we have the capacity to actually implement some of these things, because we have it all, we know what we need to do. It's just having the time and the resources to actually do it.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. Just one other quick question. I just want to make a comment on the tax rate stabilization reserve. I think that is absolutely great. Nice to see that in there. Investments need to be updated. When are we hoping this will happen?
So I am sending a list of all the policies that I need written or updated to Ms. Whaley. I think I'll send it to her at some point while she's away. Surprise.
Don't send it to her while she's away,
No,
because she'll read it.
I'll time it. I'll time it to like the morning she's back. She can
Yeah,
read
the
them.
morning when she's on the plane.
I can't say exactly, but I'm hoping by the end of the year. I'm hoping to have them in place for the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the hope. And we are right now out to RFP for our investment management services.
Oh, perfect.
And we are following procurement and everything, but I just think having an actual policy in place, it not only allows me right now to have a guideline, it also helps everyone around knowing why and what we do in council, the public, potentially like someday when you have other people in place, that we consistently have a structure in place that's accountable and, yeah, responsible.
Excellent. Anything else? Councillor McGee?
Where did we draw this document from? You weren't every day writing a new paragraph, in my view. You got a document, you got a skeleton, and then we just put something together. But it didn't become obvious to me. There are some things, but it didn't really come obvious to me that what is going to be the two big things or the three big things that we will change. And so it comes to my question, and does this actually bind the hand of the new council? And how does this help you and your financial team in the town? So those are just sort of pieces of sort of went through my mind. And
So it doesn't, I wouldn't say this document is to help my team. It's to help everyone else understand what my team does, more so, right? It helps, so when I'm making a decision, or our team is making a decision, or even the CAO is making a decision, then we can say, like, it's because of X, Y, Z. Like, we're following these strategies that are well-established strategies that municipal governments take for good reasons. And so it is definitely not rocket science, and a lot of this is putting on paper what is in the back of our minds when we're doing budget and when we're making decisions. We're like, well, we shouldn't do that because X, Y, Z. But this is more so make sure that we come back to the principles and come back to asking the right questions when making decisions. So it's for the entire, anyone that makes decisions within the town, so that we can direct them to the right, okay, have you asked these questions? Have we as a group asked these questions before we even bring something to council, for example? Or alternatively, if council has something that comes up on their strategic priorities or otherwise, then we can walk through it and be like, okay, like, let's make sure that we're checking off these things to make sure that you are not tying a future council to something you shouldn't, and or it's something that you agree is on your strategic priorities or whatever it might be. So are you saying, I'm just trying to think, because I broke every section down to saying this is what we're already doing, this is what we're going to start doing or should be doing or we're hoping to implement. So I'm just trying to, I guess I would just want a clear understanding of what you would like to see next time. Like, do you want me to reformat this, or just when I'm presenting it, highlight,
yeah,
these are all the things that we're
all I
going
was
to
thinking
implement?
about is that so I did see that, but it still felt to me like you've always been doing that. This is not different, except it's going to do exactly as you say. It's going to inform us, and it's going to lead us in a direction that, quite frankly, may not be the direction that somebody might want to go, but it's there, and it's a strategic document that not ties us, but because you talk about flexibility all the way through it, right? So, and so if you just sort of said, that's what it is, and this is why, then I think, okay.
So, yeah, you're not wrong. There are, some of the future strategies are things that we're loosely following, but if there was something that needed council's input, needed commitment from the CAO, or needed a new policy, I put them in the future section because I couldn't confidently say that we have that already. So it's not to say that we were doing something entirely different from it, but if a policy needed to be in place, if that was a strategy and we didn't have a policy already, then I might have already been practicing that. But the piece missing is an actual policy to make sure that it keeps happening. And that the clarity and the accountability piece is there. And so you're right, like some of the future strategies are different from what we've been doing, or maybe you read them and be like, oh, that's a good idea, we haven't been doing that. But some of them will seem like we've already been doing it. But from an administrative side, something is needed for us to confidently say that this is something we're practicing. So yeah.
Yeah.
But that's good to note if, when I'm presenting it next time, maybe taking out the future strategies and highlighting that so that you can see like, oh, okay, like this is where we're going.
Yeah, and what we don't want to do, I think for the last council meeting, is pass something that sort of seems so off base or a little bit odd or something like that.
Look at it this way.
And
is
it's not
that,
odd.
I think this is Alberta's gentle way of saying to the new council is financial planning for dummies.
Yeah, and there's nothing here that's like, and there's nothing in here that's like wild, that like this council is now tying the hands of the future council. It is really about responsible financial planning. It is, yeah, so I do know what you're saying, but I know we want to make sure that this is in place so that we can introduce it to the new council, rather than having them, I mean, a bunch of you are going to be there, but rather than having new people come in and having to weed through this with no context, it would be a lot harder. So you guys have now been in here for 4 or more years.
Yeah.
It makes more sense for you to be like, okay, yeah, let's accept this, and then we can introduce it to the new council, be like, okay, this is how we make financial decisions, this is why, this is what we're going to be doing. And so that was the thought process.
Yep, that's great.
Excellent, thank you. Any more questions? No? There's a recommendation for the motion. Anyone would like to make that motion?
So we're making a motion here or?
Just to accept for.
Sorry, yes.
information.
It's a roll call vote?
It will go to next to be approved, I guess, the report to be approved here. It's just to accept it as information, and then it'll be brought back at, I think it, did the date, wasn't the
says
date
that.
in there?
It does say that. So
Yes.
the recommendation is that council accepts the strategic financial framework as presented and direct administration to bring it back for approval at the October 8th, 2025 council meeting.
Sounds good, I'll make that motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make that motion that we take it as information and then bring it back to a council meeting on October 8th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
I guess my question is just that we're making a motion on a motion, that we're receiving it as information when we'll be wanting to make a motion to accept it in an open meeting, or in the next meeting, right?
So if you accept it as information, you can bring it back for a decision anytime after. If you don't,
Yeah.
then it kind of halts the process, I believe, is how it works.
Well, no, usually we make motions all the time to accept as information.
Yep.
So I guess that's where I'm wondering,
Yeah.
if we're making a motion on a motion.
Well, we're pretty much accepting it.
Or-
We're just asking them to bring it back for official
Approval.
acceptance on
Yeah.
October 8th.
We don't have to say that either, right? We can just accept it as information and.
Sure. Yep.
I guess, whatever you want.
Leaving it as it is? Yeah, okay. So all in favor of the motion as is? All in favor?
Just questioning.
All right, thank you. Do we want a 5-minute break? Yeah. Yes, okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and come back for council items. So we can restart the meeting at 10:31. And we will go to council items and upcoming meetings and conferences. We have calendars for October and November here. Any comments on any of the Councillor Clark?
Yeah, so we have the FCSS board tour on October 9th, right? At 1 o'clock. And then the candidate forum at 6:30 for those that are running again. And the other thing I wanted to just chat about real quick was, for those that are running again, where is it here? The Alberta Munis, November 12th to 14th, I believe, so.
I think we registered for like a full
Entourage.
7 and CAO, yeah.
And I think for the RMA, I think we talked about that. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure, yeah,
Go
I
ahead,
believe there's for mayor and deputy mayor for RMA 2 booked, just for one night there. Did you have any other thing to add, Colin? I just think on here too, so November, there's quite a bit missing from here. Like I know there was like all that training that's going to happen, and then there's budget and everything, because Jocelyn had put out to all the candidates, I think there was a kind of an agenda, so everyone knows what to expect in November. I don't know if we were going to be capturing it in here.
This looks to me like it's just like events or conferences, so
Okay.
this definitely doesn't have everything. And you're
Everything,
totally
okay.
right. So I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not sure where she's at in scheduling all that, but I'd imagine a lot of your November is going to be filled up for various trainings and orientations and stuff like that. I don't know if the returning council has to go to all of those or
Yeah,
not, but
yeah, you do.
there'll be a lot
You
of
have
stuff
to, yeah.
happening, yeah.
Everyone has to go. And then joint rec board meeting on the 11th, I imagine that'll be canceled. That's Remembrance Day, so there would be the Remembrance Day ceremony, right, to be included
Yeah.
there?
Maybe rescheduled,
Yeah, rescheduled,
yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a note.
Yeah, and then also for, yeah. Just, yeah, I don't know if just to make a note if we want to add all those other things for November on the calendar.
I would imagine she'd release a calendar, a different calendar for all the training and orientations. I don't know, yeah.
Because we already have, yeah, the schedule, I think, kind of all. Right?
We should
Thanks, Rick.
keep the Legion, somebody will be doing the Legion on the 11th?
On the 11th?
Well, we should cancel and try to get somebody to do something.
Cancel what?
Well, you're going to be in Calgary on the 11th, no?
No? On the 11th of what? Of November? No? Why will I be in
Because AB Munis is the next day.
Oh, yeah, no, I fly home on the 10th, and then I was thinking if all of new council would be attending the Remembrance Day ceremony, because then they leave that night for Alberta Munis. I think that would be what the intention would be, whoever, because it's a new council, for everyone that to attend. I'm not going to Alberta Munis, or whoever's not going if elected, I'm just.
Are you sure? Usually a good time, you should come.
I was gonna say till the day after. That's not I'm elected.
Right. Councillor Gamana?
Thank you. October 7th, so we are going for, okay, so you just show up there and, or is there any other plan from here, or everybody show up there?
For the tour of the
Dome
dome?
tour, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just everybody meet there at 1 o'clock?
Do we have an address for the place we're meeting? I remember seeing it on the
I think,
calendar,
yeah,
but
yeah, it's in the calendar, yeah. Okay, yeah, no, just wanted to understand how that pans out, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we could send
okay.
out just in our message.
Yep.
Who's all going, and then take a couple vehicles in. Smokers in one, non-smokers in the other, or something.
There's one. How many? Right.
I see that, I see it now, yeah. Okay, yeah, I don't think I have anything other than what we have on our calendars. So that's it for the upcoming meetings and conferences then? Your microphone. You turned it off to talk.
Oh, yeah. I have that community safety committee meeting on the 9th. Would you know if it's a go still?
I was at one just
Oh, sorry, yeah,
last
Monica.
week.
Yeah.
You have it on the 9th? Yeah, I have
That's
it.
what it shows on the
I do
calendar.
have it too.
Of October?
Yeah.
I thought someone said it was canceled. I thought Justin said the last meeting that it was going to be canceled.
It would be good if it's canceled because we have election forum and everything and CSS board tour.
There you go, Cody's here. Is it canceled then?
No official word, but we can make it cancel. I'm working on the agenda.
Okay, unless there's something like,
Something urgent or something that we could, there's nothing on the agenda currently.
okay, so remove that one, right? I'll take it off just so. All right. Like just, Cody, are you able to let everybody else know that it's canceled? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so that's all for the meetings and conferences. So 4.2, roundtable discussion. Go ahead.
If that's okay.
Yeah, we have a letter.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Oh, okay. Do we have? Oh, I see it now. All right, so we have a letter from our MLA. Asking for assistance with planning, seeking recommendations for venue for Drayton Valley. Any suggestions? Go ahead, Mayor Dodds.
Yeah, I don't think this was really us. I think it's them requesting an event space or something like that. And so I think that maybe Aaron, do you know what happened? I think we kind of just coordinated where they could use an event space and then whoever can make it, can make it. My answer to the letter was, we don't know who's going to be here for council, so it's kind of hard to plan for an event like that, right? So let them go ahead and plan, and whoever shows up, shows up.
So,
Oh.
okay. So did they come up with anything? Okay.
We're in close support, right? We're in full support.
Oh, yeah, we're in full support. It's just, I think that they were looking for a location and then a response. So I think Aaron or Jocelyn had responded back saying, you know, that you have a new council coming in, we can't speak for the new council, right? So once they're sworn in and that, we'll see who can make it and attend. But yeah,
Okay. Okay, so we have responded and they can,
Yeah, I told her if we have any additional things from today, people we would like them to invite and that sort of thing, I'll get back to that meeting.
okay. Anyone wants to suggest anybody? No? All good? All right, Councilor Clark, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just,
Just before you go, because I have to rip over to Weyerhaeuser, they're doing the gift thing there or something. They're just gift giving, so I have to be there by 11. But I wanted to say, I got just a quick message from the chairman, or the president of the chamber, requesting some security for the forum. So I'll let you just discuss that one. That'd be you, Cody.
Cody, did you hear the question? So just to bring you up to speed, yesterday we were at the Truth and Reconciliation, and we were asked to maybe consider some security. We were told that there might be some security for the October 9th forum. Are you aware of
Okay.
that?
My suggestion would be it's a private event. They should be looking for private security to do security functions, would be my suggestion on that, so.
Okay, go ahead.
in the past, though, when having forums, it was either RCMP or CPOs, though. So I'm just wondering what's changed.
can't speak for the RCMP. I know from, while I've been here, I'm very much, what is everyone's roles and make sure we're sticking within our roles. We don't normally attend private functions for private security. Similarly, if we go back, the community street party kind of stuff, they've tried to have us security in the past. Again, that's not a community peace officer's role, so we supported them with getting some security to start with. But yeah, ultimately it's a private function, private rental space kind of thing. So we don't ordinarily go provide security at private functions, so.
From what I was told, they were expecting CPOs to maybe be attending that, and RCMP is on standby. That's all they could do, but we were asked to bring that up.
Okay, well, I'll have some further discussions with administration on how, if at all, that would work, so.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks. Councillor Clark?
I had a couple discussions recently, just specifically around grants and the grant writer that we have through Alberta Council. I know we've chatted about Alberta Council and I guess the value that we see. I guess from the grant writer perspective, there's a ton of value being provided. And lots of people have lots of good stuff to say about that person. So one thing to consider when we're looking at Alberta Council, so.
We haven't decided to change anything yet, right? We're leaving it up to the next council is, so another 2 months, I think it's.
Yeah, it's been paused,
to
and
say
then
that.
the contract expires in the new year, I believe that. I know that there was a request for how many grants we've been successful with, and I thought that it was none.
So no, specifically PCCS successful through that individual?
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Oh,
I wonder if it was maybe just like any of our grants. I'm not sure. I don't know how we get updated on community grants that are successful or not. So maybe that's where the confusion is.
Zach provided an update, and yeah, and there wasn't anything on the update, but it's good to hear that if they are, there is success, and that's kind of value for our money for sure,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes it does just take some time. It's not magic, grants don't just come out of nowhere, so sometimes it does take some time for them to start paying off, I guess, but I'd be interested to see, maybe we can reach out and just have a new update. So it'd be good to know.
Well,
I
and
can
I'm
update
sure that
council.
once our contract comes close to expiring, Zach or somebody from Alberta Council, I'm sure will come and ask for renewing the contract and bring updates, hopefully. Guess next council will decide that. Councilor Gamana?
Yeah, no, my understanding was that actually we're going to continue with the grant portion only, and it's kind of a pay-as-you-go. All right, that was my understanding, where we won't be in a contract or agreement with them, but they have that option of going as pay-as-you-go for grants only. Okay, maybe I'm mistaken then.
I'll look into that. I don't have the specifics right now, but I'll see if I can dig that information up.
I
That's Kudo, right? Yeah. Pay-as-you-go.
I think that when I spoke with Jocelyn, that she had reached out and talked to Zach about kind of pausing, like that we were on that pay-as-you-go. But I guess when Pat had renewed it, that it was for a set amount of time, that it wasn't a month to month. So that's why we're tied in for the year. But Zach said he'd be willing to pause and then, then go into the new year, right? So then when Jocelyn had spoke to him, said, make sure you seek out the new council at Alberta Munis and say hi. And, and maybe, set up a time to have a delegation so you can try to get the next council on board too.
Yeah, I remember, and I think it's till December, that contract, I think. I don't know why we would have signed it for, but yeah, well, next council can decide on renew it or not. Anything else?
If I may.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Not a roundtable discussion, and it wasn't upcoming either, so I wasn't sure where to put this, but I had the opportunity to attend the Alberta Impact Award yesterday night in Calgary. It was great to see one of ours getting an award, recognizing the work that she did. Bharti Kuliasa got an award for as one of the 2 small community heroes impacting Alberta for Immigration Impact Awards. So I think that's a huge achievement for a small community like ours, which getting recognized province-wide for that. So I know that we are working on celebrating it hopefully pretty soon here, but just wanted to let everybody know that, it was a great function. There was lots of movers and shakers all across Alberta there. And yeah, it was a great event. Just want to mention that. Thanks.
Yeah. Excellent. Anything else for the roundtable? No. Okay, so we'll move on to the 4.3, and we have update about the homeless forum.
Thank you. So yesterday, or Monday, I guess, we had the 3rd meeting at the forum. I keep losing my voice more than normal. Been talking lots. So it was a better meeting of the 3 that we've had, definitely. I think that maybe we're starting to gain a little bit of traction and move forward. So out of that meeting, we kind of look at what's next steps and what would like to happen. So we'd like to go with Plan A, and that is a cleanup. We did present the committee with what it cost to do an internal cleanup. That was last year, and that was not including staff time, $3,623. If we were to get an external company to come in and do it, it would be $27,000. So lots of ideas and conversations around the table of if we should get the external company to do it, if we should pay the homeless to clean up after themselves, if we should reward them. But after some lengthy discussion, we decided that we would like to place a bin or a skip out there, the bigger ones, and they'd like to, John Hazen has been talking to them, and they'd like to take the cleanup on themselves. So we kind of, threw that back and forth. Is this something that's really going to happen and everything like that? So we said, okay, let's go with Plan A. Let's give them 1 week. Let's provide them the dumpster. And if there is a cleanup and everything, then maybe there would be like a reward or something. And that reward would be maybe we gravel a little bit of the areas so it's not so muddy. Because one of the things that we're hearing loud in the community, I mean, yes, the unsightly, but the safetiness of it, speaking with Adam, it's not, sanitation isn't an issue right now, where it was before. They've got the porta potties there, so that is fine, but it's to work with them. And I think just to keep in mind, because my question was, who's going to pay for this gravel? Who's going to pay for the bin? Who's going to do this? And they're saying, the committee's saying, I think that you need to approach it differently and say that, this is money well spent used for safety, right? And that that's what it's going towards. And I mean, I guess I do understand that in a sense, because when we've done our cleanups in the past, we didn't ask the community, we just did it. So I think, it's time for a cleanup. I don't think there's going to be a big cost for putting a skip there, allowing them to do it for the week. And if they don't, then we move to Plan B. And then Plan B would be going back to the table. And we said maybe it would be, hiring somebody to do this. There was also conversations that the committee thinks that it should be an ongoing thing. Like, some of them say that it's like how you tell your kids to clean up your room and they should just clean it up, right? So it should be ongoing and on a regular basis, and they should be responsible. So we said, okay, the committee is speaking. Let's put this out there and say that we're addressing this by putting the dumpster there. They'd also like to see a budget line come to this budget in November, whether it's 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, but it goes for the safety and the cleanup of the landfill. So it will be coming for a suggestion during the budget. So I just wanted to bring it forward that if everyone's okay with moving ahead with putting a dumpster out there for Plan A so they can get it cleaned up. The timeline is a week. If not, we move to Plan B. And then the other thing that will be happening is a comms piece going out, because what they're hearing, especially the members at large, and I think everywhere I go, even when we went to Shangri-La the other day, is still the rumors in the community, the falsehoods. So I think those need to be addressed. So we're going to put out some comm pieces every couple weeks saying, this is not true, this is accurate, this is why we can't do that. I had kind of drafted something up, and then I'd given it to Darren Pinkowski because he has a background in journalism, so he's going to kind of clean it up and add some of his spice. He said he would even be willing to put in there his suggestion of what to do, and I said that might not be a good idea, but we'll see when it comes back, so those will be going out. So, questions or concerns?
Can we ground them if they don't clean up their room?
Yes? I think that was brought up as well.
So in the discussions I've been having with people, one of the things brought up is, you guys really missed the mark in terms of the homelessness forum. You didn't include actual homeless people. And I mean, my response to that is, we did have the homeless forum before. We did invite people that were homeless, but it just didn't add value, and from the sense that it was very disruptive, hijacked the meeting, nobody got to speak other than them. And so that was my reasoning behind it. And I think there's a lot of people in this town that have all kinds of ideas that have already been tried, right? And I think it's just, I guess getting the communication out there, look, we've tried this stuff.
Yeah.
Hasn't worked, It's great that people have ideas, but it's not, you're not the first one to have those ideas, right? Kind of perspective. So I don't know, that's just what I'm hearing here, anyway.
Well, even with the cleanup, right? I hear a lot about, why don't we just get people, volunteers to go in and just sweep the place up, and it's been tried recently, and did it even last 2 days? I don't think it did. I think on day 3, they just gave up, and not
No.
even 1/20th of anything was barely, I appreciate the effort, but it was just so overwhelming that it's a tough spot.
Well, and I think that's what the comms piece is going out will be, is to be like, yes, we've tried this, yes, we've done it, it hasn't worked, yes. And for all the years I've been on council, there's always been homeless people sitting at, whether it was the Poverty and Homeless Reduction Committee, whether it was the forum, they've always been at the table. So it's just getting out the accurate information.
Councilor Gaman?
So we talk about putting a dumpster there. Who's going to clean up? We're asking them to clean up, or there's volunteers cleaning up?
That's the first attempt, to ask them to clean up their sites and put garbage in the dumpster.
So we've already asked. So what this came out of this conversation is that we'd have an external company perhaps come in, and this was the previous meeting, not the one on Monday, and Brazeau County and the town would foot the bill. So that's $27,000 roughly. We'd split that, right? So John Hazen had gone back to the warming center and talked with the individuals that are living at the encampment, and they said, this is our place, these are our belongings, we'd like an opportunity to clean it up. And we'd also said that, in the past when we did it, when we first did that one, and we put the porta potty out there, they did help, right? But this last time when the Word of Life Church went, I think that they just found it way too overwhelming. I think they thought they would get it done in a day, and once they got out there, they realized this isn't going to happen, and there was a bit of resistance from the individuals out there. So with John and Kelly and them speaking to them, they said, we would like to clean it up. And so when John first brought it up on Monday, everyone went, we've been down this road, it doesn't work. So we thought, okay, you know what? Let's give them a timeline, and I guess we have to go through all these, we did it, didn't work, and because if we don't, then we can't say to the public, we did it. So that's why we're kind of saying, let's entertain Plan A, and that is, they're asking to clean up, and initially I said 3 days, and John said that's not really fair because of just their mental, capabilities. Let's give them a bit longer. So we said, okay, 1 week, and if it doesn't, then we're going to go in and say, okay, and they're going to be full aware of this too, that you have 1 week. If not, we're bringing external, people in, and you're going to lose your stuff. So it's up to you to get it clean and brought up to, what we think is safe and suitable. So that's kind of where that idea came from. And so I said I would bring it to council. And then, we talked about the elections coming up. We'd like to get a couple comms pieces out to kind of quiet the noise before the election as well. And this was the community members at large saying this, and they'd like to get the cleanup done ASAP too. So that's where I said I would bring it here today, and let's get, moving on this then.
Okay, so do they have a timeline, like when they would like to put the dumpster there or stuff?
As soon as we decide, if we decide today, then Elvira will make the magic happen.
Sure. Do we have a budget for it, or how much
Well, we kind of said, I kind of said the budget, and maybe this is a Rick, since Shelley's not here, is we said, it's already gone over the landfill and been charged for, and now it's going to go back out, and they've stolen it out, and now it's going to go back in, so I don't know if there would be a charge if you could recharge on stuff that went in to go out, to go back in, so I'm not quite sure how that would work.
Okay, I'll rescind my question then.
So I guess is all the stuff in there coming from the dump? Or is it coming from, people in town dragging stuff out there? And,
It is both.
I guess my question is like, if it's costing $27,000 a year or per time, and let's say you do it twice per year, maybe even 3 times, that's $50,000 to $80,000 a year. Are you better off not just hiring, full-time security at the dump? Stop cutting the fences, stop breaking in there, stop taking the stuff out of there, and then you're reducing the cost because there's less crap getting out there. Has that been thrown on the table at all?
Yeah, security is always thrown on the table, but I think it's like, how do you monitor them? Because it's almost like, I don't know if hoarding is the right word, but how do you stop them from doing that? Even if you have a security person out there, they'd have to be monitoring every single person that was coming, going, okay, you can't bring this in, where did you get it from? They'd have to be following them.
My thought is just more around like at nighttime, so, after business hours.
Oh, I agree,
You know?
100%. And that's something that I think is definitely, I think for the new council needs to be a conversation. I've had that quite a bit in the community from businesses saying we should get an after-hour security going, get the businesses to buy in and say, I'll spend $100 or $200, a month to have my business protected.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. And I mean, security has been brought up, right? And I don't know if it would even be a budget for the town, because I think what I'm hearing is businesses would pay for it.
Sorry, thank you. Just a follow-up, regarding security, I'm not sure how CPO's schedule is, and is there any CPOs after patrolling the community? Maybe that's a Cody question.
So our enforcement services team works on a rotation. When we are fully staffed, we normally have one individual working a day shift, the other individual working an evening shift. Through that rotation, out of a 6-week cycle, we have 4 weeks coverage on weekends, leaving 2 weekends with no coverage. And again, that's when we're fully staffed. So part of that, though, is our evening shifts normally do end at 9 p.m. Again, just looking at previous call volumes and stuff like that, we're not getting a bunch of calls and complaints further on into the evenings. Yeah, there's the one-offs that come here and there, but the majority of our calls for service are coming between kind of your normal business hours, if you want to call it that. So scheduling to make sure that we do have coverage during those high times, peak times kind of thing, versus when nothing's going on and they're just driving around hoping to try and find something, so.
No, I totally understand that, but someone may argue that they find out in the morning, and this happens between 9 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning, right? If that's the case, may more of a preventative thing rather than actually answering and, doing something about it. Is that something we've thought about?
Yeah, absolutely. It would come down to the service level that we're looking to provide for our residents. Because again, be mindful, if we're now pushing off, we're working until midnight, 1 a.m., something like that, we don't have that additional coverage kind of during the day. Less coverage, I guess, so it's taking longer to respond to those calls for service during the day, as we are kind of now less people working, because now they're working later on into the evening. Be mindful as well, we do have the RCMP that is, they do work extended hours. I believe they provide 21 hours of coverage per day, unless, again, extenuating circumstances, but they are also working those hours, so.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I just wanted to add, maybe ask some questions just for clarity. So Councillor Clark was talking about the landfill, just to make sure that things weren't like saving on damage to the landfill and things being taken out. But were you also saying that perhaps residents are dropping stuff off at the homeless camp, avoiding the landfill altogether, like mattresses and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm
Yeah, I mean,
just-
there's a couple angles there. One, yeah, people getting into the landfill, but then others, you know, leaving stuff, say, in the recycling area or dumping them off. Yeah.
And that is why I believe now the recycling does close with the landfill because of taking advantage of that for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're all understanding what we're talking about, because I think having security for the landfill, we have talked about that before, for years actually, because of the, you know, people cutting the fences and breaking in and all that kind of stuff. But if we were just to provide security for the landfill, that of course would be our cost. But if it could be a program where they were doing security, it would reduce the effectiveness a little bit because they wouldn't just be at the landfill. But I know we've had security companies come and go in town and they just can't make a go of it, I guess, but maybe it's time again. I just don't know if that would be a municipal initiative, but for sure we can talk about it a bit and just see.
Laklabish
that
is
would look
doing
like.
it, and it's been very successful.
Yeah,
So I was at the Pembina Synergy meeting, and there was actually somebody from a security company, and I did take 2 posters from him, and I didn't bring them with me. And they are planning on starting one in Drayton Valley. They've had a lot of phone calls from business owners, especially when it comes to copper theft, and they are planning on coming to Drayton Valley and giving those posters out and having, so I'll bring it to the office here, and I have those 2 posters, I'll bring them in, and then we can have a further discussion
so then we could
about
just
that.
sign up for that program to have
Exactly.
our landfill monitored, at least
And
part-time.
it's sort of new, and they're hoping Drayton Valley will be the starting, kind of like a municipal bucket, I guess, of, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd love to look at that and we can add it, and I can make sure that Jocelyn gets at all that information as well, talk to
I'll
Cody
bring
about
it
it.
on, I'll drop it off.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'll drop it off with you then.
Sounds good.
Okay, anything else? Oh, so do we need a motion about the bin or decision, any kind of direction? We have been.
Yeah, I think we can,
Yeah. We never used, we never used to back when the previous CAO, but Pat said that, no, absolutely, so I've been making motions ever since I started.
I think that we can, with the cost of one skip, I've never heard that word before, but. A large, oh, skiff.
Skiff, okay.
I mess,
Just call it again myself. It's not a skip, so
yeah, I messaged,
skip's the lead guy in a curling.
You guys don't have your mic.
So you were questioning why are we bringing the lead guy in the curling out to the encampment?
That was Jocelyn's language. She obviously speaks the same language I do.
yeah.
Weird European kind of flair.
Yeah. But for one bin for a week, I don't imagine, I messaged Shelley for a skip, so she's probably like researching what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'll give her some hints as to the context, see if she can figure it out. I don't imagine it will be a significant financial impact. We can probably absorb that administratively, just because of how small it would be. Yeah,
Got some money in there, I'm sure, right?
Some leftover?
What's that?
Rick's pay?
Yeah.
his last paycheck.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks for the skip.
So if everyone's on board with that, then we can expect to see that rolled out in the next few days, that I could communicate to the group then?
For sure, I have reached out to Shelley to see the timeline.
Okay.
I'll talk to Cody after too. So I don't imagine it'll take very long, but once we do have a date, I can give you that information. So we
Yeah,
can
and
work
then
with
we'd
that.
want to coordinate that with, I'm assuming it would be maybe John and probably yourself. Like, how would we want to, you were there, Cody, what would be the best way, I guess, to now coordinate this with the group? Or do we want to go out there and say, look, this came back to the forum and we heard you, we're going to give you a week, so you're going to see a bin show up here in the next couple days. Like who's going to be leading this?
I think twofold. One, for sure, John, he's been kind of in contact. And
Yeah.
He's kind of leading that kind of conversation through the Warming Hearts
Yeah.
perspective. Second to that, though, is depending on when it is, I know their RDN count or something like that is going on for the homeless out there, I believe on October 7th. So we'll for sure be out there as part of that. But
Okay.
if we're planning on getting the bin out before then, might be a good opportunity that we just go out there with our outreach worker. And again, just one,
Okay,
check
so
in, see how
Vanessa
things are
too?
going. And start giving them the heads up, because not everyone from there goes to the Warming Hearts. So kind of that twofold, so.
Okay, so maybe do you want to then maybe say, if Shelley gives the timeline and says, yeah, we can get this going, could we maybe plan it after that? And then that way you said you can give the word, spread the word so they know, and then
Yeah.
we can also coordinate with John so everyone knows it shows up on the 8th or whatever, and here's your week starts,
Yeah.
countdown begins.
Yeah, no, absolutely, we can do that, so.
Okay, perfect, thanks. And then for the comms pieces going out, so once they come in and we say, okay, yeah, everyone on the committee will start sending them out. I guess, do you want me to send the comms piece out to all of council as well, so then you can share it? So as the more we get it out there, is that kind of how we want to do it, or? Yeah? Okay, yeah? You could we'll print you with what, 5,000 copies if you want to start handing out? Here you go. And I think that was it, right? Were there any other updates or asks? It'll be coming to budget, there'll be some asks, but that's it, right, Cody?
Yeah, I think this is the kind of short term right now, and then just moving forward, and whether it's desirous to try and find that money before the budget or not. Again, there was concern on it is getting cold soon or not, but I
Let's
guess
get
that
it done.
That'd kind of be that next conversation would kind of be, do we try and find that money in this year's budget somehow? Or again, is that just moving forward into budget 2026, a specific line item kind of thing for
Yeah.
something like that, so.
Okay, and then, so it's fair if Aaron and I work on a comms, or a email going out to the group saying that the expectation is October 7th, we'll go have a conversation. John, would you like to be part of that conversation? And we're hoping that we'll get the bin following just sometime after that, and the week will begin.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, perfect.
Sad state of affairs, we need a card.
Right? Yes. And I know it was brought up at one of the meetings about the fence being cut up constantly, and, do we need to repair it? Why not just leave it open? And we can't, actually.
There's a few businesses in town that I know of that every week they get fence cut,
Yeah.
every week.
Same with the dump. Every time it gets patched up, it gets cut up the next day. And that was my suggestion. When we did the walk through with the Tri-Electric, that was my suggestion and I don't see the problem with it. Also put cameras up at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so that's it for 4.3. Any items for further meetings? Nothing? All right, I guess that's it for today. Tough day, long day. Okay, I will adjourn the meeting at 11:09. Thank you, everyone. Last GNP, yep. Right? Margaritas?